John McCrae, the creator of the YouTube channel What Do You Meme, just put out a wild video to say the least. Now, I'm actually a big fan of his and subscribe to his channel, but his comments on a few different topics are pretty concerning. The main things that he touches on are why a large percentage of the Christian population isn't voting in this election, the worst case scenario in the election as a result, and why Christians really shouldn't worry in the end. Here's what he had to say.
Let's say it's Wednesday, November 6th, and it's the start of the worst case scenario. The election didn't go the way Christians had hoped, and as a result, we'll lose all political influence and our voices will be completely silenced. Our worst fears are coming true, and eventually we'll be heavily persecuted for our faith. Now, if that happens, even if that happens, we can know that Christianity will still flourish because Christ said that the gates of hell will not prevail against his church, and we can believe him. In fact, as history has shown us, Christianity often does better under the persecution from the state than it does in comfort. When your life depends on the strength of your faith, it separates the real from the fake believers real quick. And I say all this because it should comfort you, not drive you to lash out at Christians online who chose not to vote.
Now, this is an extremely concerning stance to have for a few different reasons. Yes, Christianity survived after the Roman Empire, the British Empire, and it will after the American Empire. But what does that fact have to do with voting to save what millions of people had to die to give us? We as Christians are called to actively participate in protecting the innocent as well as our own families. Standing by to watch the moral fabric of your country crumble is not protecting anyone. Even though God's law is infinitely higher than man's law, like it or not, as humans, we have to submit to the country's law that we live in. If we as Christians do not have an active voice, not only we, but our children along with their children will inherit the consequences. Now, here's a case that John could have made for people not voting for Donald Trump. He could have pointed out that Republicans are becoming too complacent in receiving the Christian votes every year. Therefore, we could and maybe should sacrifice one election cycle to send a message to the Republican Party that you cannot win an election if you do not fully support the pro-life position. Now, I get what John McCrae is trying to do. He's even said it plainly before. He doesn't want to live in an echo chamber where everyone blindly follows whoever's in power for the Conservative Party. He also points out that Christians who watch 10 times more political videos than Christian videos, or especially scripture, should reevaluate their priorities, which I completely agree with. However, the purpose of this video is to make this point. 68% of the United States identify as Christians. 41% of Americans identify as pro-life, where only about 30% of those pro-lifers are Christians. This fact should be eye-opening to every Christian church in America. Every pastor and every priest should make it very clear to their congregation what Scripture's stance is on abortion. However, at the same time, there are 350 million people in this one country. Having a powerful federal government is not a solution for that many people. This is where government overthrows and revolutions happen. Giving each state the right to choose what they want to do with abortion isn't the most holy policy, but it also isn't siding with the pro-choice movement. In any negotiation, neither side will get everything that they want. But choosing to stay silent where no one will know or feel what you want is not the answer. We seem to have a very short memory in today's age. We can't forget that only 2 years ago, Roe v. Wade was overturned, not because people agreed with everything Donald Trump had to say, but rather because the pro-life movement strategically voted for more of what they believed in. I'll end with this. This reminds me of the classic hero story in more ways than one. Whether it's Treebeard or Frodo in Lord of the Rings, both of them didn't want to fight in a war. They didn't care about the thrill or of the glory of it all. They fought because they were forced to fight. They had plenty of opportunities to sit aside and go back to their comfortable lives, but they didn't, even though they knew they might die. Just remember that good is stronger than evil. When Christians die, we will be reunited with Christ in heaven. But until then, we should not only hope for good to triumph over evil, but we should actively fight for good to triumph over evil.